On my video to Hank Green talking about his error-riddled video about knitting and physics, I got this comment. Well, it also makes me wonder then, if I watched a video from him that I didn't actively know a lot about, that maybe I shouldn't take his word for anything. Thank you for this comment, Lily. This actually really struck me because it reminded me of a TikTok video I saw a couple of days ago. There are so many of us who seem very confident in presenting our opinions on the internet, but we talk about things where we may not actually have expertise and we may have errors. We may have blindness in certain places, right? There is definitely some Dunning-Kruger, and people who are real smart and real educated in one area and can speak authoritatively. We can kind of get outside of our zone and sound very authoritative, sound very convincing, and make video essays, make content that convinces a lot of people, but may not be super accurate. Let me show you the video I saw the other day that meshes with your comment, and then I want to talk about it some more.
Someone else made a video about how YouTube video essays can seem really good and thorough and well-researched until they're about something that you know a lot about, and then you realize, oh my gosh, it's terrible. This is horribly done. Have you ever experienced that with a person? Because I have. And you meet someone, especially as an adult, you meet people like later in life, and they seem so smart and confident until and they have a different expertise than you. And then they talk about something that you know about, and they are so confident and yet so wrong. And then it makes you think, this is how they talk about everything. Even the stuff that they do say that they know stuff about. And then, because you're there in a conversation, you can go and try to correct them and say, well, and they say, no, I think this is how it is. And it's, between the two of us, I mean, I don't know everything, but I'm the one that has a degree in this subject.
So that creator was talking about people online, but also people in real life. And I want to talk about both of those things. So one of the things I have learned being on TikTok for, over a year, about a year and a half, is that there are people who present very confidently. They will even cite sources, but they don't actually know what they're talking about, and they're unaware of the areas where they are ignorant, or they are bringing their own tremendous bias to the conversation. Obviously, right? We should all be aware of that. And I have definitely fallen for this. I had to block a couple of people recently where I thought, gosh, they had good takes on some issues. And then I would see a video where I was like, this is a horrifically bad take. You either don't have reading comprehension or you are intentionally twisting the narrative in order to present a position that is not actually being made in the thing that you're critiquing. And if this is truly your reading comprehension and your interpretation and analysis of what is happening here, then I am now questioning whether anything you said is trustworthy. Now, I don't expect perfection from other people on the internet, right? I do think that it's so easy for us to, as creators, to get outside of our realm of expertise and speak too confidently on an issue. I also think it's easy for those of us who are watching content to think that because somebody is yapping confidently on the internet, they must know what they're talking about. Being convincing in your argument does not mean that your argument is correct. Having expertise in one area, that doesn't transfer to another area. And I fully admit, I sometimes will get outside my zone, but then I'll try and say, like, I'm not an expert on this, or I'll point to an expert. And then a lot of times people will ask me a question about an issue, and I'll be like, I don't actually know enough to speak on this. And it can be really hard to say that, especially when there's viral content around a certain issue. And profit is very frequently a motivator for people on social media. You got to catch that viral content. You got to get it out and have the algorithm spread it so that you can pay your bills. And I'm not even really speaking about rage baiters. I'm just talking about folks like maybe the Green brothers. One of my kids for a long time has been very critical of them because they often will make confident videos that are outside of their realm of expertise, and people will believe them because they are so knowledgeable and educated in other areas. But I think this knitting video is a prime example of, I don't want to say the Dunning-Kruger, but definitely the ignorance of the misogyny and the elitism and a complete lack of understanding, right? Like, not well researched, but confidently presented. And people who don't know anything about knitting could potentially believe everything that was in that video because you have someone who's an expert in other fields and is generally regarded as like a real smart dude, because he is a smart dude. Like they're going to accept what he says uncritically. And I guess that brings me back to a point that I feel like I have to make continually as somebody who has been making social media content for almost a decade, which is that we should not uncritically accept anything that somebody says. We should take everything somebody says with a grain of salt. We should understand that so many influencers are trying to influence you. They're trying to shape your thinking and your worldview. They are trying to potentially change your mind. They are trying to persuade you. That's very different, and sometimes I think we're not aware of that. I don't like to call myself an influencer, but more and more I really have been thinking about the ways that so many people on social media, their role really is to try and influence you about politics, about social issues. They're trying to get you to think a certain way and to support certain causes or candidates. And so I think there's this combination of sometimes people are just ill-informed, right? Sometimes they put something out and they really shouldn't have been talking about that issue. But then sometimes I think we have people who have an agenda behind what they're saying. And it is that parasociality. Somebody is very confident. I know I can come across as extremely confident. And I think you need a certain level of projection of confidence for your audience to want to listen to you. But at the same time, I do think it is our responsibility as consumers of this kind of content to have some level of skepticism, to have some level of fact checking. I know that TikTok especially promotes this very passive, like we just receive content from other folks. And the way that I see people in the comment section, or the way that I see people making videos that are just like straight up misinformation, but they heard it somewhere and they uncritically accept it and repeat it. For example, that video about all of those salt trucks in Chicago, that became something that went very, very viral in the comments, and people made lots of videos, made lots of money off those videos. Just absolutely baseless claims that Governor Pritzker was like bringing out salt trucks to block ice or something. But getting back to that creator's video, they were talking about how you can have that same experience in real life where I don't want to say it's that overconfident and undercompetent. And I don't want to say that people are always persuaded by vibes over facts. I don't think that's true. But yeah, the confidence and the persuasive nature of an argument, that's why debate works. That's why propaganda works. I don't know. For me, I guess this whole conversation really resonates because I have people who will come to me and ask me to speak on a topic, assuming that because I'm confident on one subject that like I must know everything, instead of the fact that I have very limited expertise. I don't know. Lately, the number of people I've seen making content where like you don't actually know enough to speak on this. You know a little bit. You have some Dunning-Kruger and maybe some hubris, and you think that you can present on this subject when there are actual experts that we should be deferring to. I know this is a conversation from maybe 10 years ago about the death of expertise and moral relativism and truth is subjective, blah, blah, blah. Now we've progressed into this phase where we are having post-truth politics rule the day. But I do think expertise actually still matters, and then understanding the limitations of your own expertise still matters. I know it doesn't generate the same kind of revenue online to get somebody who leaves a question in your comments and then be like, here's my 10-second video where I say, I'm so sorry, I don't know enough to speak on this issue, right? Instead, making a video about it when you probably shouldn't have, that generates revenue. That's a capitalism, y'all. We are caught in a system where we are pressured to prioritize profit over truth, over liberty, over the Constitution, the lives of our fellow citizens, right? Profit fucks everything, including our ability to see our own limitations and to decline to talk about something. I don't know, I realize this video is a little bit rambly and I've gone on way too long, but I think there is a lot for us to mull over here. I think this is a conversation that should be ongoing, especially when we're talking about creators that we see online, but also probably folks in our real life as well.